Today I'm going to show you how to use Lexis's get and print function to easily compile a PDF or print version of multiple authorities. So if you'll take a look at the home screen when you sign into Lexis, you'll see that it looks a whole lot like Westlaw. Substantively, visually, it's just a little bit different branding and color scheme and everything. But you've still got all of the same groups of sources, same type of browsing capabilities to browse by jurisdiction or by practice area or by topic or type of source, right? So it looks pretty similar. You still got your search bar, you still got your jurisdictions and filtering your searches, right? Pretty similar functionality, but Lexis and Westlaw have a few different types of tools that can work better for different situations. So from here, to get to the get and print function, you want to click on Tools over here on this content menu, and then you want to choose Get and Print over here on the right. So bring up the Get and Print menu. Here you will enter in citations for the authorities that you want to download or print, and down here you'll specify how you want Lexis to present that information for you. So let's start by typing in the citations of the authorities that we want to retrieve. So I want you to note that you do not have to include a case name or a year or anything else. What you see on the screen is a complete citation for get and print. As you can see, it tells you to either use a semicolon to separate your citations, or to separate them by placing them on different lines. Let's type in one more. Case to retrieve. Okay, so now we've got the citations that we want to retrieve. Let's go ahead and customize the options for how those cases should look. First of all, we definitely want Lexis to retrieve the document, and we don't really want any attachments, right? You also want to click to deselect Retrieve Shepard's Report. As we've discussed a little bit in class, the Shepard's Report is really similar to the citing resources and notes of decision that you find on Westlaw, but Shepard's is Lexis's brand name for it. Shepard's is also Lexis's function of citating or ensuring that case law is still good law. So it's similar to the Westlaw flag system or the Westlaw negative treatment tab. However, the Shepard's report is going to give you basically everything you would get if you printed out the entirety of a Westlaw citing authorities and citing references tab. You don't need all that information, right? So I would not select that. Your format options, you've got quite a few options. I would deselect the cover page because you really don't need that. I would get rid of this name in the footer because you know that you printed it. You can leave the page numbering if you'd like to, but I recommend getting rid of it just to ensure that you don't mix it up with the star numbers that you're relying on. And if you're using PDFs, it makes sense to keep the embedded references as links. If you're printing, it might make sense to take that off just so that you don't have weird blue text. You can customize the font a little bit. It gives you a few different options. And you can customize the font size. You can also choose whether you'd like the line spacing to be single or double, so it can make taking notes on your cases a lot easier if you want a double space to give yourself more margin. Lastly, you can bold, italicize, and underline your search terms. I recommend deselecting those options just to make your text easier to read, because if you searched for the word privilege, for example, you're going to have a lot of bolded words for no real reason. I would leave this option selected though, because it lets it use bold font for the reporter page numbers, so that'll make those star numbers a little bit easier to see in the text. There are content-specific options as well. So this is divided up by the type of content that you're downloading. For cases, you definitely want the full case document, and you definitely want the Shepard's signal indicator. That's the equivalent of the Westlaw flag that tells you whether it's good law or not. There's also the option to show headnotes. I would deselect that option because that's going to be a lot of text at the beginning of your case before it gets to the opinion. And while the headnotes are really helpful if you're researching in a database on the website, they're not as useful in a downloaded case or a printed case. You can set the number of columns to single or double. A single column will take up the whole width of the page, and the case will consequently take up more pages in your PDF. Or dual columns so that you have two narrow columns of text on each page. For forms, you can select whether you'd like to include annotations and footnotes. For secondary materials, you can select whether to include annotations. The ones that really matter are here, where you've got statutes and administrative codes. I would deselect include annotations, because if you're pulling up a statute or a regulation, what you really want is the text of that law. You don't really want annotations that are going to confuse you or lead your research astray. Now that we've got all of our options set for the substance of our request, we want to select how we'd like to retrieve these documents. You can select print if you'd like. However, I think it's much easier to do download every time, because if you download, you get the PDF and then you can email it or print however you'd like. Lexis gets a little confused about emailing and printing, so I recommend that you download. You can choose whether to save your authorities as one big file or as separate PDFs for each separate authority. You can also choose the format. Let's stick with PDF and one file for this. Then you'll click Get. You'll get a little indication that it's processing your delivery. Then once it's done, it's going to populate a link for you to click on in order to download your files. So I've downloaded my one PDF file, and it's got all 3 cases, starting with the first case I typed in, and then moving on to the next cases. You'll notice that we've still got the Shepherd's signal indicator up here. That's the equivalent to the Westlaw flag urging caution. So you still get to know whether it's good law or not without printing that full Shepherd's report. You can also see that the star numbers are bolded. And in this example, the embedded legal links are links, and we'll pull up the document in Lexis if you click on it from your PDF. So that's how you use Lexis Get and Print to quickly pull up PDFs to print or share of multiple authorities. Thanks very much.